Story 1. I am a former Navy member. The next step is Iran's retaliation against United States assets in the Middle East, specifically against Bahrain and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is something the military actively trains for because it is a literal worst-case scenario in terms of an international crisis, short of nuclear war. The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly dangerous even during normal transit, let alone during a live conflict. We have 3 carrier strike groups in the area, so there will likely be naval and aerial skirmishes. Any loss of American life will only make our response more severe. Keep in mind, we are just talking about the Navy here. There are also Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force assets involved. Story 2. Many military contractors and their shareholders are going to make a lot of money. Unfortunately, many people, including soldiers, will die, but none of those children will be the children of affluent shareholders. Story 3. Best case scenario, nothing. Worst case, boots on the ground, American lives are lost, Iran retaliates elsewhere through terrorist attacks. Story 4. Well, Trump said, now it's time for peace. So I am sure Iran will just forget that we bombed them and everything will be wonderful. Story 5. Listening to supporters of Make America Great Again try to explain how a 20-year-old United States soldier dying in Iran on behalf of the Israeli government and leaving behind a grieving spouse and fatherless children is making America great again. Story 6. If something like that happened, it could escalate quickly, leading to potential retaliation, regional conflict, and rising global tensions. Definitely not something that ends neatly. Story 7. The MAGA voters will be pro-war overnight. Goalposts will be moved. Some Democrats will criticize them in headlines. Then back to work. Story 8. What will it lead to? Here is one possible scenario. 2, 10, 20 years from now, terrorists will launch an unprovoked and outrageous attack on United States soil, causing death, destruction, and heartbreak the likes of which have not been seen since September 11, 2001. Those who claim responsibility will cite today's incident and likely future ones as their justification. Of course, the man who instigated this will likely be long gone by the time the true cost of feeding his ego comes due. As is his pattern, we will be the ones who pick up the check. I hope I am wrong. Story 9. The United States will kill people, groups will hate us even more, Iran will become destabilized, more people will die, nothing but death, and the cycle will continue. But thank God we spend money on bombs instead of universal health care. Story 10. As the New York Times is putting it, the attack on the sites marks the first time since the Iranian Revolution in 1979 that the United States has sent its Air Force to strike major facilities inside the country, an act of war. This was done without any congressional approval. Story 11. In the long run, this helps China. The United States is refighting 20th century wars while China is executing plans to control the 21st and 22nd centuries. Story 12. Trump cannot negotiate. He can only threaten. He has not helped with the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and he certainly did not help with the Iran and Israel conflict. Netanyahu does not want to leave office, so he urged the United States to do his dirty work. This gives him a chance to remain in power indefinitely. Trump falls for it. Trump is weak. I believe the result will be much more instability in the region, and all Trump can do is issue threats. He is only a self-described peacemaker. Story 13. It means that everyone around me who were coronavirus disease experts a few years ago, and then turned into weather experts when we were hit by 2 hurricanes, are now going to be experts in military affairs. Florida just enacted a no chemical trail law, so I guess a few of them will be driving around the state, chasing chemical trails and calling emergency services. Story 14. Back in ancient Rome, political leaders did not just go to battle to prove themselves, but were expected to. Donald Trump is nothing but a chicken hawk. He also believes people forget how he dodged the draft. Story 15. Donald Trump and his wealthy associates will become richer while United States soldiers will die in another war that the country should not be involved in. Story 16. It will lead to screaming women and children who are having their homes bombed and have nothing to do with any of this. Condemn those warmongers from all nations. Story 17. I believe this will be a major topic of conversation for a few days, and then everyone will forget about it within 1 or 2 weeks. Story 18. Here comes the second coming of the USA Patriot Act. Say goodbye to our privacy and freedoms. Surveillance state incoming. Fascism is here. Do not have children. Story 19. There will be innocent blood spilled so Benjamin Netanyahu can stay in office. This is not about Iran getting nuclear weapons. They said they had no plans. The Central Intelligence Agency said they had no plans, and they were in active negotiations to ensure they did not. This is about Netanyahu becoming unpopular at home and internationally. So he struck Iran to galvanize his people against an enemy, to draw international sympathy against retaliation, and to distract from a campaign of ethnic cleansing, starvation, and the slaughter of civilians in Gaza. Western governments that were critical of Israel fell in line, replacing mild critique with Israel has the right to defend itself against wars it started, and Iran cannot have nuclear weapons when their own intelligence says that they do not. So now we all teeter on the edge of oblivion, of dying from radiation and a war where norms and safeguards are discarded. For what? So Benjamin Netanyahu can stay as prime minister? So extremist settlers propping up his government can fulfill their dreams of annexation? 50,000 dead Palestinians in morgues, countless more buried in the rubble, more still rotting in kill zones where the Israel Defense Forces gun down anyone trying to bury the dead. Dead Israelis, hostages obliterated by Israel Defense Forces bombs, innocents killed by Hamas, by Iran, and from the carnage of deploying tanks and air support in kibbutzim. Dead Iranians from Israel Defense Forces airstrikes, and many more teetering on the edge if a bomb sets off a nuclear facility. And soon enough, if Iran retaliates, dead Americans too. Why? So Benjamin Netanyahu can be prime minister a bit longer? How much innocent blood must be spilled for one wealthy man to keep his job? Story 20. Not sure, but apparently the bomb sites have been evacuated long ago. Story 21. First of all, I think this will devastate the entire region and destabilize it for an unknown period. Either a genuine or staged domestic terrorist event which the current administration will leverage to activate wartime powers, further concentrating executive authority. Hopefully, there will be a split in the grand old party between those who comply and those with the courage to stand up to Donald Trump. However, something tells me that is unlikely to happen. Story 22. Hopefully some relief for all the countries Iran has targeted and abused since the beginning of the Ayatollah's regime. Iran's leadership is a horrific death cult that has sponsored terrorism throughout the Middle East. Regime change would save thousands, if not millions, of lives. Story 23. What they want is to be able to enter permanent emergencies so that they can eliminate the midterms. Story 24. I feel like Reddit forgets anything from more than 10 years ago. We have defeated them before, a few times. Story 25. The most likely answer is that Iran complains but takes no action. Israel has been attacking Iran for the past year, and Iran has done very little in response, despite having sworn to destroy Israel. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange is at an all-time high. Story 26. Gee whiz, if only someone could have seen this coming. For whoever helped normalize this giant orange sack of nonsense 8 years ago, let alone put him into office, I hope you are enjoying this. This is 100% because of you. Do not even think about blaming anybody else. Story 27. Every president in my life has done this. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025. 2021. Ordered airstrikes in Syria against Iranian-backed militias without congressional authorization. 2022 to 2023. Conducted retaliatory strikes in Syria and Iraq following attacks on United States forces. 2024. Reportedly conducted strikes in response to escalations in the Red Sea and Houthi involvement. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021. 2017 and 2018. Ordered missile strikes against Syria in response to chemical weapons use without congressional approval. 2020. Ordered the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, widely debated for lack of authorization and potential act of war. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017, 2011. led North Atlantic Treaty Organization air campaign in Libya to oust Gaddafi without congressional authorization. Claimed the War Powers Act did not apply due to limited engagement. 2011. Operation Neptune Spear sent Navy sea, air, and land teams into Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden, violating Pakistani sovereignty without their consent. Drone strikes in Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, and elsewhere, many never authorized by Congress. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009, post-September 11, 2001. Although the authorization for use of military force was passed in 2001, Bush used it to justify wide-ranging global actions beyond the original scope, including surveillance and strikes in countries not named in the resolution. Bill Clinton, 1993 to 2001. 1999. North Atlantic Treaty Organization bombing of Serbia during the Kosovo War. No congressional authorization, done through NATO. The House even voted against authorizing continued bombing, but Clinton continued. 1998. Operation Desert Fox, airstrikes against Iraq over weapons of mass destruction concerns. 1998. Missile strikes in Sudan and Afghanistan targeting al-Qaeda after United States embassy bombings. George H. W. Bush, 1989 to 1993. 1989. Invasion of Panama to remove Manuel Noriega. No prior congressional authorization. 1991. Gulf War with Iraq did eventually get congressional approval, but military buildup began before that. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989. 1983. Invasion of Grenada with no congressional approval. 1986. Bombed Libya in response to terrorist attacks. 1980s. Various covert operations and military support in Central America, for example, Contra support in Nicaragua, with highly questionable legal bases. Story 28. Iran will retaliate mildly, and it will be over in the short term. In the medium term, Iran will try to execute terrorist attacks on the United States. Story 29. Well, Christians might get the end times they desire, but in typical fashion, it will not be the one they expected. Story 30. Whatever happens, Donald Trump has no idea about it and does not have the knowledge or temperament to deal with it in a healthy, constructive way. Story 31. Trump never considers consequences. Unfortunately, we have already lost at least 2 United States soldiers. He dissolved the deal President Obama negotiated with Iran and never revisited it. It is no coincidence the first country Trump visited during his first and second terms was Saudi Arabia. It appears the $400 million jet from Qatar was the payment. It is also no coincidence the 2 countries opposed to President Obama's Iran deal were Israel and Saudi Arabia. Trump shows no concern for the United States of America or its citizens. This will lead to many deaths. Story 32. I think everyone is talking about war, retaliation, and more retaliation. What I really think is going to happen is the Republican Party will splinter. He has just removed a significant portion of his more libertarian voter base. Story 33. Many terror attacks have occurred in America, with innocent people caught in the crossfire. As a result, more people in the Middle East are developing negative feelings toward the West, affecting another generation. Story 34. Another side effect of this situation is the Trump administration was just blocked by a federal judge from using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to speed up deportations because America is not at war. Well, that is no longer the case, and one can only imagine what other actions they will try to justify by being in an active conflict. Story 35. The wealthy make a large amount of money, while many common people die in conflicts they did not want or start. Politically, there will be no consequences. It is a very sad situation. Story 36. I do not really care where it leads. This nonsense has been going on since the beginning of the Bible. It will never change. Story 37. A lot of death. A lot of death for our military who are being punished for speaking out in favor of the Constitution or against the former president, unless they find a way to get discharged. One soldier posted a video about how he is not comfortable going against the Constitution, and they put him in a psychiatric ward, then solitary confinement. This really messes with their sense of honor and valor. They are brave, but the idea that they are forced into an illegal war against the oaths they swore to uphold might make things feel meaningless to them. What a horrible man he is. He wants to sacrifice our soldiers for his personal glory, not to mention collateral damage and deaths. No respect or consideration for the military, for humanity, for this planet from him. Just a means to an end. He thinks he is immortal and that no one else matters. I do not know if other countries will join in or when. The former president at least tried to be convincing. This man does not care at all. He just tries to bully people into everything without logic or concern. He does not care how Americans feel or what they believe. He simply wants them to obey without reason. We all see it. His shows. I have been praying a lot for a miracle. There is not much else I can do. Story 38. Just my view, but I think most are missing the point of what is going on here. The ultimate goal for the West in Iran is regime change. I believe we are very close to seeing it. Privately, Israel and the United States have the backing of most of the world except Russia and China. While Iran would probably like to retaliate against United States assets, they will find it extremely hard to do so. Iran is probably at its most isolated it has been in the last 2 decades. Their proxies are currently almost completely decimated. The rest of the Arab region wants nothing to do with them or despises them to begin with. Russia has its hands full elsewhere and really would not risk direct involvement on 2 fronts at this time. Only China would give them direct support with weapons and intelligence but does not want to publicly back a losing side. I think Israel and the United States are trying to pave the way for a regime change via military coup. A handful of observations. Israel gained near full air superiority within 24 to 48 hours, decimated Iran's military infrastructure and ability to strike back. Iran rocket attacks halved in a day and halved again the next day. With full air superiority over Iran, it was easy to destroy their offensive capabilities. Once a rocket is launched, you immediately know where it was fired from, and the Air Force can destroy the launcher or site immediately. Israel specifically targeted members of Iran's command structure, leaving Khamenei himself alone. They do not want to make him a martyr, and assassinating a head of state crosses a certain line and may lead to messy, uncontrollable outcomes. Israel also targeted Iran's broadcasting and media centers, leaving the London-based opposition-funded ones fully operational. Having done all this, only the nuclear sites were left, requiring bunker busters, which only the United States has. Khamenei had no options. If he surrendered the nuclear program, he might as well have ceded power. Israel and the West would not have accepted anything less than full capitulation on that front. Now that he has lost by force, he is weak and exposed. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is in nobody's interest, including China. China's only interest in Iran has been economic. They have invested substantially in Iran in return for cheap oil, which Iran struggles to sell elsewhere due to sanctions. If Iran tries to close it, it will be reopened quite quickly by force. Israel has full air superiority, the United States Fifth Fleet is positioned nearby, and other United States military assets have been shifted to Southeast Europe and Saudi Arabia on standby. The move against this Iranian regime has been planned and in the works for at least 10 years, and this was an extremely opportune window to execute that plan, which has thus far been nearly flawless. Longer term, the region and the world are better off with a non-nuclear, non-adversarial Iran that is reintegrated into the world stage. Iran has a large, productive, and well-educated population steeped in culture. Now the situation in Palestine is a whole other story and an utter humanitarian and geopolitical disaster with no possible good outcomes. Regarding Russia and Ukraine, I think the conflict is about to escalate and that scares me. It feels like the United States and Russia have some behind-the-scenes agreement going on. United States out of Ukraine, Russia out of Iran. This destabilizes Eastern Europe, and I am not sure the European Union is ready or capable of guaranteeing Ukraine's security against Russia. Story 39. Because of who is sitting in the Oval Office right now, trust me, I don't like him much either. People are conflating this with World War III simply because it supports a narrative. A military strike is not a declaration of war. Yes, a true declaration requires a vote in the United States Congress. The War Powers Resolution grants the president very broad powers to conduct military operations outside the legal definition of war as long as he a. informs Congress within 48 hours and b. does not commit armed forces for longer than a 60-day period without congressional approval. The two nation-states of the United States and Iran are not in a legally defined war. This is not the United States being a shill of Israel. Our foreign policy has been clear for decades that Iran will not be allowed to hold a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Even Donald Trump has held this opinion for more than 20 years, even when he identified as a Democrat. We are the only country on Earth that possesses munitions like the GBU-57, capable of destroying facilities like Fordow. Anyone telling you this will result in an Iraq-style ground invasion with thousands of American troops and another decades-long nation-building enterprise is lying to fit some agenda or is willfully ignorant. The vast majority of the Trump administration is highly isolationist and protectionist and has zero interest in that. Yes, there will be an increased risk to military personnel at bases throughout the Middle East and naval forces in the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran's retaliation to the assassination of Qasem Soleimani is any indication, they will strike bases with the express purpose of not killing Americans to save face and claim a response without provoking massive retaliation for killing large numbers of American personnel. There is also a sizable risk of Iranian proxy groups increasing terrorist activity in Western countries, including the United States, and that threat needs to be taken extremely seriously. Anyone claiming that a large-scale military clash between Iran and the United States will result in anything other than the complete destruction of Iran's military capacity, and likely the immediate death of the Ayatollah, is objectively misinformed. In 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts struck an Iranian mine, and the next day over half of the Iranian Navy was gone. The Iranian Air Force still utilizes F-4 Phantom fighters, a jet the United States retired in 1996. American air power is several generations ahead. Story 40. Donald Trump dismantled the Bioterrorism National Security Unit in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, so I expect Iran's response to be related to bioterrorism, followed immediately by a Trump declaration of war powers. Story 41. Nothing at all. We killed the Iranian terrorist during Donald Trump's first term, and nothing happened. Nobody is coming to Iran's defense. Story 42. Well, Iran just declared war, so I guess it leads to that. Just swell, really. I cannot wait for the increase in terrorist attacks against United States civilians around the world. And here I was thinking I would go back and visit in August. Story 43. Honestly, I think that this will help Donald Trump. If Iran retaliates, Donald Trump has shown he is unpredictable. He will do anything because he is not rational. Iran does not have the capabilities to actually hurt the United States. Any Iranian retaliation could, I think, galvanize Americans and help Donald Trump's terrible poll numbers improve a bit because Americans can be easily influenced. If Iran does not retaliate, then Donald Trump's unprovoked attack will be heralded as genius because his misguided peace through strength approach will be seen as successful. Feels very depressing. It is also a great misdirection from Donald Trump's low-energy agenda, the millions of people protesting, immigration and customs enforcement disappearing people, his big billionaire tax failure, and other issues. I do not think this is World War III, but it feels like a desperate con man found something helpful. But then again, what do I know? Story 44. Gas prices will reach $6 a gallon by the end of the week. Even if nothing changes, the oil companies will use this as an excuse to make a substantial 4th of July profit. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.